let's conclude this product management portion of market value creation with a focus on branding and packaging and the importance of those two aspects to product management. What do we mean by branding? Branding, or a brand, is the words or symbols that identify your products from those of competitors. Do you know what brand this represents? You're right, Nabisco. What about this one? Little Debbie? Who doesn't know the Jolly Green Giant? Or Mr. Peanut for Planters Peanuts. Note here by Mr. Peanut the little R next to the bottom right of his name. That means there's a registered trademark, not only for the look of the symbol of Mr. Peanut, but for his name. They had to register that, as did these other brand names and brand symbols, with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, as we discussed earlier in another session. And one of the world's most valuable brands, Apple. Let's look at this concept of brand equity. In other words, the value of a brand. According to Forbes magazine, these values were calculated on November of 2013. Let's look at some of the most valuable brands. By the way, the brand value in billions of dollars. So $104 billion. Microsoft, almost $57 billion. Coca-Cola, just the value of the brand. We're not talking here about the headquarters or the offices or any of the products that have been produced, but if they were to quit producing products and sell their brand name and symbol to someone else to use, this is what some of these different brands would be worth. And that's referred to as our brand equity. So I think we've illustrated the importance of branding and how much companies value their brands. Why is branding so valuable? Well, first of all, branding provides benefits to buyers. It makes it easy for buyers to pick products and services, and so that makes purchasing a particular brand easier, especially if they're brand loyal to your product. That's nice. For sellers, it allows you to easily identify your products to potential buyers. So there's a lot of value in having a brand loyal consumer. And I think we've already discussed the difficulty in changing people's attitudes about your particular brand. Here is an article that was published in the Evansville Courier and Press some time ago, but I think it still pertains and is very helpful now. So let's look here. It says, you're looking for a bottle of water and you look at bin after bin and it gives a bunch of different brand names. And what makes one bottle more special than the other? And it says here there's a perceived factor at work in how we perceive these different options. And how we perceive those different options is called branding. It talks about how branding, how a consumer object has differentiated itself from its identical competitor, is the reason you might drink Pepsi over Coke, lather up with Dial instead of Ivory, drive a Honda, not a Toyota. It goes on to say that branding is important because 9 out of 10 times the marketplace is so overcrowded by pretty much the same types of products. So you need the brand to pick one product instead of another. And branding is basically creating identity. Basically, you also do that with yourself. With your digital brand, everything you do and put online for you personally creates a digital identity or a digital brand for you. So you have to ask yourself, is this the brand I want to portray to potential employers in the future? But back to branding of products and services. A brand helps communicate to people what it stands for. You put a brand on it and it tells something about the quality. If it's designed well, that's an identity. It says when you have a product that's just like any other product, there are many ways to compete. The stupid way is to lower your price. The smart way is to change the value of the product by telling a story about it. Does this remind you of our differentiation lecture? And so a product that is well differentiated, well positioned, is easier to brand. It's more than just giving it a name or a symbol. Branding is also based on that differentiation and positioning in the marketplace. It talks about Johnson & Johnson is selling trust. Anything that has the Johnson & Johnson name on it, they want to make sure that it's harmless to kids and babies so that mothers don't lose their trust in the brand. Disney's a brand. Some of the other things it mentions is some of the world's greatest brands have become what we would consider in our normal vernacular, or we say we're going to FedEx something or we're going to Xerox something. What we really mean is we're going to overnight something or make a copy of something. So I hope this illustrates to you a little bit of the importance of branding and why it's so important to marketers and to buyers. I want to share with you another article that was in, again, the same publication, the Evansville Courier and Press. This was published on April 8th of 2012. I think it's interesting, and it talks about, again, about this concept of branding. And it says, when you have a boo-boo, you reach for a Band-Aid, not a Band-Aid. Not a bandage. When you need to blow your nose, you ask for a Kleenex, not a tissue. What's interesting is that oftentimes we use the brand name to refer to the product category. So it talks here about how companies trip over themselves to make their brand names household names. But there are a few brands that become so ingrained in the lexicon that they're synonymous with the product category themselves. Genericization. And so marketers have to balance their desire for brand recognition with their disdain for deterioration or possibly losing the ability to renew their brand. Companies spend billions of dollars to create a brand so that their brand is recognizable to those consumers. Sometimes those names become so popular that they become shorthand for similar products or others in their product category. So what can be done to prevent it? Usually what happens, sometimes if it becomes too familiar, judges rule that it's too generic to be trademarked. And that usually happens if somebody sues another company for using their name and the case goes to court. If you look here, Bayer lost the name aspirin in 1920. B.F. Goodrich lost its ability to trademark the word zipper. It became generic for the product category versus referring to their specific brand. Escalator used to be a brand name. Now it refers to the product category. Thermos, Yo-Yo, other examples of brands that actually were not renewable as far as their trademark and became generic for the product categories. So what do marketers do to prevent their names from becoming generic? Let's look at Band-Aid and what it has done. It started referring to its product category as bandages. So instead of saying, I'm stuck on Band-Aid, they say, I'm stuck on Band-Aid brand bandages. So basically, Band-Aid, to protect the legal use of their brand name, came up with a name for the product category, and that's bandages. And then they used the word brand after their brand name. So Band-Aid brand bandages. And why do they refer it to that way? So that they can maintain the value of their brand, like we looked at earlier when we looked at the value of a brand name. Let's move on and talk about picking a good brand name. One question is, does it stick out in a crowd? Does it separate well? Does it tell what it does? Is it short enough? If it's too long, it might be nicknamed. So keep that in mind. Is there a fit with the business or the purpose? Does it tell what the brand does? Can people easily spell it? Do people like it? Can it, can it be protected? Does somebody already have it available, or has somebody already used that particular brand name? So you can look at some more suggestions for naming your brand name at this particular website. And also you can look at some blunders. Kentucky Fried Chicken translated their slogan, "Finger licking good." It translated in China to "eat your fingers off." What about Coors? "Turn it loose." In Spanish translates to "suffer from diarrhea." What about Clairol? In Germany, when they translated their mist stick, it translated to manure stick. What about the American Dairy Association's Got Milk campaign? It translated in Spanish to "Are you lactating?" So they're just some examples of examples. This was a good one. Schweppes tonic water translated to Schweppes toilet water in Italy. So the point is, there are many factors to consider in selecting your brand name. Another thing to consider, if your company produces more than one brand, another factor to consider if your company produces more than one product is how you want to name those brands. Do you want to give each different product item a different brand name? Or do you want to use family branding? For example, Whirlpool calls all of their appliances Whirlpool appliances. Healthy Choice calls all of its items Healthy Choice, as does Arm & Hammer. Let's take a look at the Arm & Hammer, for example. Everything they produce, Arm & Hammer has used family branding. What are some benefits of family branding? Well, when you promote one brand, you indirectly promote all the other brands because they hear that name. The drawback, though, is if there's something wrong with one product item, it then spills over to all the other product items that have that same brand name. So you can see that the pros and cons of family and individual branding, the pros of one are the cons of another. One other type of brand is private brand. In private brands, a retailer feels like a number of customers come to that retail location to buy a particular type of product item. So they go to a manufacturer and ask them to produce a brand just for them, which is exactly what Kenmar has done. Did you know that Kenmore appliances are produced by Whirlpool? And you can only buy Kenmore appliances if we come down here and we look for a store locator. The only place you can find Kenmore, and by the way, Craftsman tools, are in Sears and Kmart because those two companies are owned by the same business. So, Kenmore appliances are an example of a private brand that is produced just for resale in a particular retail chain or outlet. So to illustrate, if your company produces more than one product item, you have to decide whether you want to individually brand those items or whether you want to use a family brand name for all of those items. And then you should also understand the difference between a manufacturer brand, one that's manufactured and sold in multiple retail outlets, and a private brand, one that is manufactured for resale specifically in one brand of retail outlets. We don't see a whole lot of generic brands anymore. True generic brands don't have anything other than the product category on their label. One more consideration besides branding is packaging. The packaging for your product helps protect, store, and transport your product. It helps promote the product, communicate the features of the product, and it provides convenience to consumers. There also, though, are growing environmental concerns and considerations about packaging and wastefulness in packaging and what that does to our environment. So marketers have to balance these benefits of packaging with the concerns of packaging. Look at this innovative packaging for a sports drink shaped in the form of a dumbbell. Even Pringles potato chips were innovative packaging when they first came out. They were packaged in cans versus in bags. Now, one thing to be aware of when you package something that's not consistent with the product category, for example, chips in cans instead of in bags, part of the promotion for your brand has to be about the benefit of this packaging and has to show that product packaging. Otherwise, when the consumer goes in the store to buy chips, they look for bags and overlook cans because chips don't come in cans. So that's a discussion of packaging things category consistent with your product category, or packaging things that are not category consistent. And if you don't use category consistent packaging, you need to make sure that you promote that so that people know to look for your product category, your brand, in this innovative type of packaging.